Hello, I'm Kyle from Ninkharsag, singer and guitarist. The band was formed in 2009 by the other guitar player, Paul, who wanted to make really classic sounding black metal without any modern influences, sort of like similar to old Merciful Fate, King Diamond, Bathory, Emperor, Mayhem, stuff like that really. It took a while for the band to actually become what it is. It was started in 2009, but he'd been working on some songs before I joined, and I'd also been working on a few tracks of my own, so we sort of put them together into one project. It was actually really hard to find musicians in England and Liverpool, where we're from, to actually start a black metal band, because most people just didn't really have the inclination to bother. Yeah, so the name itself is taken from Sumerian goddess Ninkharsag, and Ninkharsag is an alternative spelling of that. She's a mother goddess, fertility goddess. But what we find really interesting is that the connotations of the hidden history behind Sumerian mythology regarding like the Anunnaki, who were this race of supposedly godlike, star-faring aliens, for want of a better word, who came to Earth to use mankind as a slave race to dig for gold. So we find that side of the Sumerian mythology quite interesting. So that's where the name is from. The composition of the Blood of Celestial Kings took about 2 years from when we actually started playing together, which was in 2000. And so, but like I said earlier, we've been working on separate tracks anyway, which ended up on the album. So the composition for the album itself took 2 years, but a lot of the ideas are a lot older. So we recorded it in a studio local to us over the course of a week. Really quick, simple process. And we tried to keep the feel quite organic sounding. We didn't want to overproduce it like a lot of modern black metal sounds. So it sounds quite raw, but it definitely works for the overall feel of the album, I'd say. So the different themes on the Blood of Celestial Kings album vary from secret history, war, death, necromancy, things like that really. So there's quite a mixed bag of ideas, but the overarching idea is definitely from the same source, which is more obscure history and mythology, various cultures. But the theme of humankind as like a slave race ties all the songs together in a way. So yeah, it deals with a lot of that. But I also believe that the listener can put their own interpretation of the songs, because the lyrics themselves, unless you study them a bit deeper, can take them at face value, but there's also lots to actually interpret and to think about. So the cover art to The Blood of Celestial Kings is Enki and Ninkharsag pouring the waters of life to the Sea of Apsu. So we chose that because, as I mentioned earlier, regarding the slave race, the idea of people meddling in the creation of mankind, and considering how human race at this point is very much a slave race, we found it quite fitting. And there's also quite a lot of symbology in there as well, which past the face value of it, you can get a lot of deeper meaning from it as well. So study. Working with Candlelight Records, it was a dream for us to actually get signed to a label of that size, especially Candlelight, which has such a prestigious history, and a lot of our favourite black metal albums are from Candlelight Records as well. So it's been a big learning curve and a stepping stone for us to actually work with them. Although when we signed to Candlelight, we actually had the album finished 2 years prior. So by the time The Blood of Celestial Kings came out, it was almost old hat to us, if you know what I mean, for want of a better term. It was sort of like an obsolete album really. Well, you know, we appreciate it for what it is, but definitely looking forward to this new album. It's definitely been a steep learning curve, but one that we definitely appreciate, giving us some really good exposure, and the album's available all over the world, which we'd never have been able to achieve from a smaller label, local labels. But we're always on the lookout for new labels to work with in the future, because we just don't know what other labels can offer in the long run. So we definitely want to keep our options open. In regards to composition of the songs, I write my own songs and I write all the lyrics for the band, whereas Paul, who started the band, does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to songwriting. He writes the majority of it. The band itself is a very open forum for different ideas, so whoever brings an idea to the table, we will always try and take as much from that as we can, because it's quite a diplomatic process when we come to writing songs. If something sounds shit, we won't hesitate to say, or we'll always try and put the song first rather than ego. All our experiences on tour have been, thankfully, positive. We've never really had any major incidents. The usual problems are just from people not turning up, from acts of God freaking weather, things where you just can't control. Maybe some shitty turnouts at gigs, but they're usually like in places where we've never played before, or there isn't much of a scene to begin with. So thankfully we've always had a good experience, but sometimes you just don't always get what you want. In regards to the burning of churches, I am all for the complete obliteration of organised religion. It's basically just a fucking curse on the earth. For bands who are just starting out in the industry, well, it can be a long, arduous process to even get noticed, and you have to stick to your guns and don't let anybody fucking piss you around. Labels or promoters or the bands, do what you need to do, don't fucking compromise, and hopefully you should reap some rewards further down the line. But if you're doing it for profit or for material gain, then you're generally just wasting your time. We've just finished work on the second album, which we recorded with Chris Fielding from Conan, who also produces the Winter Phillip albums, and musically it's a huge march forward since the Blood of Celestial Kings, so there's a lot more classical heavy metal influence on there, but which we have never shied away from including. It's just a lot more pronounced on this album, but it's still absolutely black metal. It's just not a modern black metal album, which is what we've always wanted to achieve. So we're very happy with how it turned out, how it sounds. It sounds fucking huge, but it's got a lot of different nuances, and yeah, we can't fucking wait to release it. It might surprise a lot of people who expect us to just sound a specific way, but basically wanted to write an album for ourselves. We don't really give a fuck if people understand it or appreciate it. It's purely for us, so if you like it then that's great, but if not then go listen to some fucking bollocks instead.